Okay, so we've talked about length, customary, we've talked about metric. Now today we're talking about capacity. So right underneath of metric, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. We're writing capacity. So we're going to make two different charts. We're going to do this in two different ways. So I'm going to make a chart that has 4 sections. 4 sections. Okay? So my first section, I'm going to write 1 cup. And I'm going to write everything that is equivalent to 1 cup. 1 cup actually has 8 fluid ounces in it. Now another way to say fluid ounces are FL and then OZ. I'm not sure why it's a Z. My guess is that it's a root word and what it originally came from, whether it's Latin or Greek. So 1 cup, my next thing bigger than 1 cup is 1 pint. Okay, 1 pint is equivalent to 2 cups. And in 2 cups, each cup there's 8 fluid ounces. So how many fluid ounces would be in 2 cups? That would be 16 fluid ounces. So 1 pint is equivalent to 2 cups and 16 fluid ounces. So let's go larger than 1 pint. Larger than 1 pint would be 1 quart. So inside of 1 quart, you have 2 pints, 4, because there's 2 inside here, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 cups. So now there's 2 of these inside of here. There's 16 fluid ounces inside of a pint, but I have 2 pints, so I have to double this. So that's going to be 32 fluid ounces. 32 fluid ounces. So we have one thing that's larger than a quart. We have cups, then we have pints, then we have quarts, then we have gallons. So inside of a gallon, there is not, our pattern every time has been 2 inside of each, but quart, the prefix quart, or the root word quart, actually means 4. Quarters, quartiles, quarters means 4. So there are 4 quarts inside of a gallon. So that would mean I would need to multiply by 4. So there's 8 pints. So I have to do times 4. So there are 16 cups. I need to multiply by 4. So I could really quickly figure out what 32 times 4 is. So I have 32 times 4, 8, 128. So there are 128 fluid ounces inside of a gallon. So this is all something that you have to memorize. But let's talk about something that is an easier way to memorize this. I'm going to draw a really big G. So let's look at how much space I took up. I went from my chart almost down to the bottom of my page, so I made a really big G. So G stands for gallon, right? G stands for gallon. Let's see if I have a highlighter that actually works. Oh, that's a permanent marker. That one might not work. So gallon is the G, okay? So inside of the gallon there are 4 quarts. So I'm going to make these large. I'm going to fill up my whole big G so I have enough space. 4 quarts inside that gallon. Okay, 4 quarts in a gallon, 4 Q's in a G. How many pints are inside of one of those quarts? 2. So there are 2 P's inside of each quart. 2 pints inside of each quart. 2 pints. 2 pints inside of each quart. Okay, inside of 1 pint is 2 cups. So there's 2 of those. 2 of those inside of each. So I can count up how many are inside of each thing by looking at this picture. So how many cups are inside of a gallon? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. 16 cups inside of this gallon. How many pints are there inside of a gallon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I could draw this picture to help me remember everything that I have up here in the chart. Okay, so let's talk about some example. Oh, I'm going to do one thing. This over here is customary. Over here, I'm going to talk about metric because they're different. Metric has to do with liters. 1 liter equals, do you know how many milliliters? Milliliters. This stands for milliliter. Milli means there's 1,000. 1 liter equals 1,000 milliliters. That's all you have to know for capacity for metric. Okay, let's talk about some problems. So let's say I have 4 gallons and I want to know how many pints. Follow my same steps. I've already written this on 2 other cards. I'm not going to write it again on this flap here. Step 1, write your S and your L. A pint is smaller than a gallon. A pint is smaller than a gallon. What do I do when I go from large to small? I multiply. Times how many pints are inside of a gallon. Here's my big G. How many pints? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I counted up the P's. So I multiplied that by 8. So 4 times 8 is 32. Okay, let's go the other way around. Let's say I had 8 cups. Okay, and I want to know how many quarts. 8 cups, how many quarts? Which one's smaller, a cup or a quart? A cup is smaller, a quart is larger. So I'm going to copy my 8. What do I do when I go smaller to larger? Smaller to larger. I divide. How many quarts aren't inside of cups? So I'm not going to say it that way. How many cups are inside of a quart? Here's a Q for quart. How many cups are inside of there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. Is 2. Okay, let's practice a metric. Let's say I have 5 liters. I want to know how many milliliters. 5 liters. I want to know how many milliliters. Which one's smaller? Milliliters are tiny. Liters are large. Okay? So how large to small means that I multiply. How many milliliters in a liter? 1,000. My answer would be 5,000. Okay? What if I have 3,500 milliliters and I want to know how many liters that is? Smaller and larger, smaller to larger, I divide. Same steps I've been doing on every other flap every other day. The divide and the multiply. So I'm going to do 3,500 and I'm going to divide that by 1,000. What is 3,500 divided by 1,000? Okay, this is when we would be able to use the calculator. So 3,500, or we might understand the pattern. It's 3,000 and a half left over. So it would actually go in 3 5/10. You could type that into the calculator and see what the calculator gave you. But it would go in 3 5/10. So tomorrow we're going to keep practicing these. So these have to do with capacity. One more thing I'm going to say. Capacity has to do with liquid, sometimes medicine, is done in milliliters, especially if you're a kid and you take that liquid measurement, you have to put it in a cup or something like that. Liquid is done with capacity. Lots of times measuring flour, measuring rice, just like we did in class, is done this way.